A hand reaches out as a voice trails off in the background. A young man with spiky hair and pointed ears yells in distress, asking what was said. He shouts for 3 small fairies to stop as they fly around a girl. Then he angrily tells the fairies to stop with their smug faces after they appeared. Blushing, he states that this situation is the result of events from 3 days ago. The story flashes back to him in a t-shirt, holding a tablet computer. He looks at a VR headset, identifying the game as Trace World Online. The game is described as a second life where real skills determine player ability. He thinks about how the game is still very popular and considers his option. Next, he decides he wants to become a specific character he admires from his past. He recalls a side character from a childhood anime who could fire many arrows. As a small child, he looked up to this character with great admiration. He joined an archery club to emulate the character, but felt unfulfilled by it. Believing his dream could be realized in the game, he puts on the VR headset. The system interface inside the headset prompts him with the message, "Please scan." A woman shows a boy a ring-like device, explaining it is for beginner. She tells the boy to stand still while she prepares to fit the device. The boy holds the ring device around his waist, getting ready to put it on. He successfully clicks the device into place around his waist with a sound. The woman says it is finished, and the boy asks if that is all. She instructs him to put it on and then presses a button to activate it. The woman helps the boy, now wearing the device, lie down on a bed. A virtual reality headset is placed over the boy's eyes, initiating the experience. Inside a digital space, a voice welcomes the boy to a place called 2. The voice continues, instructing the boy to make a selection from an unseen menu. Surrounded by orbs, the boy is prompted to select a race and says, "Elf." An image of an elf appears as the system confirms it will create his statue. The system then prompts the boy to decide on a name for his new character. He looks at his stats and questions why his HP is 0, looking concerned. A status screen shows his name is Renji and HP is 0/0, which he notices. A system message explains that choosing a direction makes those skills half cost. The player's hand selects the long-range physical option and confirms the bow specialization. He then searches for specific skills while being prompted to allocate his stat. A system voice informs him that a starter archer set is available, which he accepts. He reviews his character sheet, which shows his race as elf and his base statistic. The system then prompts him to set his appearance, offering to load his scan data. He imagines an elf archer and decides to make his avatar look similar to that. While customizing, he notes his brown eyes and decides against green hair for a darker shade. The system informs him that initial equipment can be customized, and he agrees to a small change. His character creation is completed, and a system voice tells him to wait for release time. He looks at his new elf avatar's face, showing pointed ears and an excited expression. A voice announces the release time has come, and he will be teleported to the starting area. He materializes in a new location with the sounds of a bustling town around him. For a moment, he finds himself standing in a town square identified as the Town of Beginnings. Looking around the square, he observes many other players with different character class. The elf-eared boy observes other adventurers in town. Noticing their various weapon, he internally questions the absence of a bow for his own use. A map for the game Trace World Online shows the starting town and 2 field. The boy arrives at the south gate, believing it is the designated meeting place. His eye widens as he spots someone in the distance outside the gate. He sees a person holding a sign in a field and wonders what they are doing. A swordsman runs towards him, calling out the name Nayasu, and he confirms his identity. The swordsman introduces his player name as Now and his class as a thief. Now apologizes for something, and the elf-eared boy says it is fine. The elf-eared boy asks Now to wait because he has something to do first. He comments on the peaceful scenery while watching a small rabbit-like creature in the gray. A white, fox-like creature suddenly jumps down, startling the rabbit creature below it. The boy watches in surprise as the field erupts with dozens of panicked, jumping rabbits. He tells Now that the scene was not peaceful for the rabbits and apologizes for waiting. Now says he has questions, and the other boy agrees to explain everything in order. The spiky-haired boy begins by addressing the reason why long-range physical attacks are unpopular. Elf-eared boy confirms this, stating that he was the only one in town. The first boy explains that player skill is a major factor, making physical ranged attacks hard. Elf-eared boy is surprised to learn that even swordsmen can miss their swing. He continues that magic is superior because it only relies on skill correction to hit. The elf-eared boy concludes that no one would choose a weapon that is unable to hit. He then asks why the other boy chose it, who praises it as a good question. The spiky-haired boy explains that physical projectiles do not disappear beyond their effective range, unlike magic. Elf-eared boy looks thoughtful as he processes this new piece of information. The other boy states that success requires a combination of skill correction and personal ability. Elf-eared boy smiles, realizing that if he can hit his targets, he can be the strongest. The spiky-haired boy is happy that his companion understands the concept so quickly. He explains that a local rabbit monster flees at 50 meters beyond their attack range. The boy excitedly realizes that this means they might be able to monopolize the hunting ground. Elf-eared boy, now holding a bow, agrees to try it and asks what it eye. Renji examines his bow's stats, noting its damage is equal to a grass rabbit's HP. He pulls back the bowstring with a focused expression, preparing to take his first shot. From his perspective, he estimates the target is about 60 meters away, a difficult range. He releases the arrow from his bow, sending it flying across the open field. The arrow soars through the air, but ultimately misses its intended target completely. A small rabbit creature jumps in surprise as the arrow lands harmlessly in the grass nearby, now attempts to reassure Renji as the field erupts with panicked, jumping rabbit. As Renji aims again, now asks if he can hit it, but Renji expects to miss more. Another arrow lands in the grass, having been aimed too high and too far back. Renji's eye widens as he pinpoints a new spot, questioning if this is the right aim. His next arrow flies true, successfully striking one of the rabbit creatures in the head. Renji celebrates as a system window displays his kill, level up, and special reward. Now looks up from a menu and asks if he got a hit, questioning why he wasn't watching. Renji says he was busy messaging as told, and now asks if he leveled up. He confirms the level up and states that he can now use his skill point. Now asks about useful skills, and the elf-eared boy recommends one called Collection. He explains the skill automatically gathers unowned items which should apply to fired arrow. The boy tells now to test it, and 2 arrows appear stuck in the ground. He checks his inventory and is surprised to see a broken arrow has been added. Now gets excited about the unusable arrows and asks the boy to give him some. The boy asks how to transfer items, now tells him to use friend selection. Now celebrates getting new information to report to everyone, confusing the elf-eared boy. Now explains he is in a top strategy clan from the beta called Senko. He invites the elf-eared boy to join the clan, and the boy considers the offer. The boy thinks he would rather focus on his archery skills than deal with Clan Dutai. He asks now to form a party, but now says he is already with clanmate. Now adds that while he could join the clan, he might feel like an outsider. The elf-eared boy decides to play solo for now and politely declines the invitation. Now tells him to call if he changes his mind and then says he is leaving. The elf-eared boy waves goodbye, telling now to enjoy the game and thanking him. He decides that playing solo might be easier since he only knows now. Now at level 2, he checks his character stats and readies his bow for practice. With a determined expression, he prepares to begin his archery training in the field. He glances across the open field and notices some movement in the far distance. His eyes widen in surprise as he gets a clearer look at the activity. He sees another player with a bow standing among several defeated monsters. The other player, a girl with fox ears, turns and asks who he eye. She holds her bow with perfect form, having already finished drawing an arrow. Renji thinks she is beautiful and wonders if she has real-life archery experience. Watching her hit another target, he feels motivated and thinks he cannot lose. He resolves to master not just accuracy, but also rapid-fire archery technique. Believing it is possible in a game, he attempts to knock 3 arrows simultaneously. The arrows fly wildly, and he exclaims that controlling them is too difficult. He considers that shooting single arrows involves a 5-second cooldown to draw one. Suddenly, he decides to practice shooting single arrows efficiently, though it is far from rapid fire. Renji wipes sweat from his brow, feeling overwhelmed by the other archer's performance. He internally notes that she kills every monster in a single shot without ever missing. There, he laments his own low accuracy while looking at his character's stats on a screen. He deduces that she must be incredibly skilled at archery outside of the game. The fox-eared girl turns her head slightly, seeming to notice him as she speaks. Renji is startled, realizing that the skilled archer has caught him staring at her. He watches nervously as she walks directly towards him with a determined expression. She stops in front of him and asks if he needs something, causing him to flinch. He apologizes and says that he feels like he has seen her somewhere before, Inside him, he covers his mouth in embarrassment, but she replies that she has also seen him. The fox-eared girl looks at him and states plainly that she has seen him before. Renji looks back at her with a wide-eyed expression of pure confusion. She then asks him if he is the junior of a person named Shizuku. Then she explains that she was shown a photo of him, and he asks if she knows Shizuku. He confirms that he got to know Shizuku during a previous archery competition. The fox-eared girl says he seems more skilled than her senior, calling him a true master. Renji looks embarrassed, finding it awkward to be recognized by a stranger. She apologizes in case she was mistaken, which surprises him. He asks if she is referring to Eight Uchi, a specific archery term. An explanation defines Eight Uchi as prioritizing hitting the target over proper Kyudo form. Renji apologizes for showing her his unsightly form, which makes her look confused. He explains his style is an imitation and does not follow traditional Kyudo form. The fox-eared girl then asks him why he is apologizing for his technique. She states that in this game, the one who can hit the target is absolutely correct. Renji looks at her, processing her practical view on archery in the game. The girl notes she saw him practicing for speed, and he confirms his goal is rapid fire. She repeats the term rapid fire. Admitting she has not mastered it yet either. Next, she then invites him to join her in defeating a field boss, surprising him. He asks about the boss, and she explains a guide site described it as a tutorial. She believes his potential for rapid fire would give them a significant advantage in the fight. The fox-eared archer tells Renji that while it is not rapid fire, it is no problem. A diagram shows a boss rabbit with 100 HP and 4 minions with 10 HP each. She explains her plan is to defeat the boss and minions simultaneously, as targeting all 5 is difficult. Renji thinks that while she can fight the boss, he cannot yet defeat the 4 fast rabbit. Seeing his hesitation, the fox-eared girl asks if he is not interested in her plan. Renji questions the rush to challenge the boss, suggesting they should level up more first. She replies that she is aiming for the first subjugation reward. For a moment, she explains that defeating a field boss for the first time yields valuable rewards like skill point. Renji considers the rewards, wondering if a rapid-fire skill might be obtainable. The girl smiles, asking if a difficult challenge is not more exciting, calling it an adventure. She continues to smile confidently at him as he considers her word. Renji repeats the word adventure to himself and agrees with her. The two archers shake hands, formally agreeing to team up for the boss fight. As they walk, Renji introduces himself, and the fox-eared girl says her name is Raina. A loading screen with a map shows their party moving from a building toward a forest. The fox-eared girl states that they have arrived at the entrance to the area. She asks Renji if he is ready, and he confirms that he is okay. One of them takes a step out from the forest onto a grassy field. The two archers emerge from the trees into a wide-open clearing together. Renji expresses surprise that the forest has suddenly changed into a grassland field. He then notices several glowing circular patterns on the ground and asks what they are. The girl explains monsters are summoned from the circles and asks him to proceed. Renji prepares his arrows, intending to shoot before the cooldown to prevent monsters from scattering. A large rabbit-like creature begins to materialize from a circle, ready to be shot instantly. The monster is revealed to be a big grass rabbit field boss with 100 HP. Renji yells for the attack to begin as he prepares to loose his arrow. He shoots at the smaller rabbits, hitting 2 but lamenting that one arrow missed. An arrow strikes one of the smaller rabbit creatures, inflicting 30 points of damage. The fox-eared girl holds her drawn bow, stating that everything is proceeding as planned. She tells Renji only the boss is left, and he thinks it might be easy. The big grass rabbit boss glares with an angry and aggressive expression. It suddenly charges forward across the field at an extremely high speed. The fox-eared girl exclaims in surprise at how fast the creature is moving. She quickly leaps to the side, narrowly dodging the rabbit's powerful charge. The boss misses its target and continues its high-speed run across the grassland. Raina tells Renji she cannot keep up and to shoot freely, which he acknowledges. He internally notes that his shots only do 10 damage compared to her 30 to 40. Renji resolves that his only option is to shoot as many arrows as possible. An arrow strikes the boss's flank, reducing its health to 90 out of 100. Another arrow hits the charging rabbit and its health bar drops to 60. Raina leaps high into the air and fires down, lowering the boss's health to 20. The wounded boss moves in an erratic zigzag pattern as Renji prepares to pursue. As Renji gives chase, Raina compliments his effort, and he thanks her in return. Feeling confident, Renji tells himself to get his arrows ready for the final attack. His confident expression expression suddenly changes to one of wide-eyed shock. Renji panics upon seeing he only has 7 arrows remaining in his inventory. He grits his teeth, acknowledging the tight spot but resolving that he has to act. Drawing his bow, he aims at the last minion, hoping to land at least 2 shots. All of his arrows miss their target, landing in the grass as the creature dodge. He berates his poor accuracy and tells himself that he needs to think of a plan. Checking his inventory again, he sees that he is now down to only 2 arrows. The small rabbit minion looks angry while Raina considers what skills are available. Renji's eye widens as he suddenly comes to a realization. He remembers he can use his collection skill to retrieve the arrows that missed. Deciding to bet everything on this idea, he starts running across the field. The fox-eared girl watches him run in surprise, calling out his name. His inventory shows that he successfully recovered arrows, bringing his total to 8. With a determined expression, he draws his bow again, vowing to hit this time. Renji leaps into the air as he looses an arrow, yelling for it to connect. The arrow flies true and strikes the final rabbit minion directly in the face. Suddenly, the fox-eared girl moves with incredible speed, her tail a blur of motion. A system window immediately appears, announcing that they have leveled up and acquired a new title. Renji gasps for breath, looking shocked and overwhelmed by the sudden end of the fight. He collapses to his knees from exhaustion as Raina runs toward him, calling his name. Renji apologizes for not being much help, but Raina, also exhausted, says he is wrong. She stands and compliments his rapid-fire archery, thanking him for his contribution to the fight. They discuss the rewards, with one asking about stat distribution after receiving many items. Reina's status screen shows she is level 8 with extremely high strength but minimal dexterity. Renji's status screen shows he is also level 8 but with high agility and dexterity. He realizes Raina has no accuracy boosting skills and is shocked by her unconventional build. Renji asks if her accuracy is from her own ability, commenting on her extreme stat choice. Raina explains that damage depends on strength, and Renji then asks about her skill. She states that she does not need any other skills. Internally wondering about Renji's build, Raina explains the archery skill's effect and asks if he knows other useful skill. Renji points his finger and confidently recommends that she acquire the collection skill. Renji gestures and tells the fox-eared girl that he will not do something. She looks confused as text explains that arrows that hit targets are unusable. He explains that he was trying to save his arrows for the next area. The girl asks if the next field is difficult, and he confirms that it is. A map is shown as she explains the next field's recommended level is 30. She clarifies that the other secondary fields only require players to be level 10. Renji looks nervous and sweats after learning about the high-level requirement. He says he is anxious but will try his best, and she encourages him. The girl mentions new skills were added, which Renji confirms on his menu screen. She suggests they use the new skills because the next field will be tough. A skill list shows new abilities like double shot and twin arrow. Renji realizes that combining these skills will allow him to shoot arrows faster. He then apologizes, admitting he is out of arrows and asks if she can spare any. The girl says, "Let's go," as a finger selects yes on a prompt to move field. They arrive in a forest where both signal for silence with fingers to their lip. Renji and Raina peer from the bushes, and he states that a monster has appeared. They observe a large spider, which Renji estimates is 40 to 50 centimeters long. Raina kneels with her bow, announcing her plan to use the double shot skill. She instructs Renji to shoot immediately after she does, and he agrees to the plan. As Renji draws his bow, he notes that Raina's arrows travel at a higher speed. Raina's eye is shown in a close-up as she focuses intently on her target. She internally reaffirms their strategy to quickly shoot down the monster with the surprise attack. Raina confidently calls out the name of her skill, double shot, as she prepares to fire. Renji simultaneously announces his own skill, double shot 3-hit combo with 2 arrows knocked. A volley of arrows strikes the spider, with damage numbers appearing over its body. The spider, pierced by multiple arrows, rears up aggressively in the forest clearing. Renji notes that their 8 hits only took half its health, and Raina agrees they cannot defeat it. A close-up shows the spider's multiple eyes as Raina confirms their grim situation. The large spider suddenly moves forward with surprising and incredible speed. Renji looks terrified, exclaiming that the creature is faster than the grass rabbit and also creepy. Raina spots a large spider spider monster rushing towards them and shouts for him to shoot. An arrow strikes the spider's head but appears to have no effect on the creature. Renji panics, saying the spider is too fast to hit and is coming directly for him. He analyzes its movement, noting it moves laterally unlike the previous rabbit bow. The spider continues its wide side-to-side advance, making it a difficult target. Raina looks back with a serious expression and calls out Renji's name. She warns that it is too close and suggests retreating, but then tells him to wait. Renji yells for her to get away, stating that the monster has targeted him. Raina looks back at him with a surprised expression, taking in his word. Following his instructions, she turns and begins to run away from the immediate danger. Renji believes there will be a moment when the spider charges straight at its prey. He draws his bow, preparing himself for the monster's inevitable direct assault. With a determined look, Renji takes aim as the spider closes the distance. The spider leaps through the air, pouncing directly toward Renji to attack. From a distance, Reina aims a glowing arrow as Renji lies on the ground as bait. A system window displays notifications for a level up, a skill up, and a new title. Reina says they managed it and thanks Renji, who looks flustered and dismisses her praise. Renji smiles and confidently states that the previous fight was no problem for him at all. A text box appears with the single word lies, contradicting his confident statement. Shivering, Renji admits he never wants to be a decoy again, even though it was his idea. Reina smiles and brings up the topic of the first subjugation bonus they received. She suddenly dashes forward into the forest with a determined look on her face. Renji watches her go with a wide-eyed, surprised expression, caught off guard by her speed. He calls out her name in confusion, asking what is happening as she runs ahead. A large, snarling white wolf with bared teeth appears from the darkness of the wood. Renji sees numerous pairs of glowing eyes in the forest and resolves to fight back. With his bow drawn, he thinks to himself that fighting this many enemies is impossible. A large speech bubble containing a scream erupts from above the forest treetop. The two archers sit defeated in a town square where Reina states that they died. Renji clutches his chest, commenting on the pain of defeat and resolving to be careful. Renji asks if they should go again, but Reina expresses some hesitation about it. Reina states she is also out of arrows and suggests they restock and complete quest. She points toward their destination and says they are going to the guild. They arrive at the guild, which is explained to be a large multi-purpose facility. Inside, Renji explains the guild offers quests, shops, a tavern, and an inn. Reina looks around the grand hall, musing that large clans use similar buildings as headquarters. Renji observes the long queue at the counter and considers it a hassle to wait. Reina's ears suddenly twitches as she looks intently towards something across the room. Her gaze settles on a group of 3 other players talking in the distance. A close-up shows her eye narrowing as she stares with an intense expression. She walks toward them, telling a surprised Renji to display his strongest title. A girl with flowers in her hair is shown crying and apologizing to the group. Reina stands with her arms crossed, questioning what the crying girl was doing with them. Renji watches from a distance in shock, wondering why she is seeking out trouble. A cat-eared man from the group says he was just teaching her about ranged combat. The group of 3 players look over, wondering if a fight is about to start. A blonde-haired man from the group turns his head with a serious expression, questioning the commotion. He dismisses the situation as a trivial squabble that will soon be over. The blonde man's eye is shown in close-up as he calls it a fight between small fry. Renji looks back with concern, stating that it does not seem that way to him. The cat-eared man mocks Reina, pointing out she is also a ranged attacker and should reroll. Renji's title is displayed above his head as he watches the confrontation with a worried look. The cat-eared man tries to lead the crying girl away, telling her to come with them. Renji thinks about how badly ranged physical attackers are treated within the game. The crying girl tells the group to leave her alone, insisting that she is stronger than them. Blonde-haired man from the group scoffs in response to her claim of strength. Reina warns the group they will regret this later, thanking them for the unsolicited advice. Renji trembles slightly, thinking to himself that Reina has a strong mentality. The crying girl suddenly prostrates herself before Renji, begging for forgiveness and saying she has no money. Renji panics, trying to explain to Reina that it is a misunderstanding and he knows the girl. Renji smiles, stating he has 5 titles and does not need their reward money. The girl with flowers in her hair looks shocked by his high level and strong title. She panics, asking if he is going to beat her up, then quickly denies it. Renji simply laughs in response to her flustered outburst. A thought bubble from an onlooker expresses surprise at someone gaining 5 titles so quickly. A man in ornate armor armor approaches Renji, introduces himself, and asks for a moment to talk. Renji looks at the armored man with a confused expression, asking who he I. He then notices a large crowd has gathered, recognizing the man from the beta test. Renji asks if the man is famous, and the man replies that it is not mistaken identity. The armored man confirms he is looking for the archer named Renji. Renji's eye widens in realization as he asks if the man is Nao's friend. After making the connection, Renji realizes he should properly introduce himself as well. The man introduces himself as a Rudo, clan master of Senko, and says inviting Renji was right. Arudo looks at Renji with a serious expression and asks him to become his strength. His words are repeated in a speech bubble, reiterating his recruitment offer to Renji. An elf-eared man is speaking to someone, while the fox-eared girl stands behind him looking confused. He hesitates for a moment before giving his answer. Suddenly, he firmly refuses the offer with a raised hand, saying no. A blonde man smiles, looking amused by the direct refusal. The elf-eared man explains his reason, stating he heard their clan was the top raiding group. He continues that he has no interest in raiding and will not act as they expect. The blonde man listens to the explanation with a thoughtful expression on his face. Elf-eared man adds that he knows the clan doesn't force its members to cooperate. The blonde man clarifies his goal is data collection and only wants reports on his experience. He mentions that clan materials are shared freely, which makes the elf-eared man look surprised. The elf-eared man considers the offer, thinking he could get high-level material. Blonde man then begins to state the conditions for joining, saying, however, he explains that he requires reports on real-life data like sleep, meals, and daily activity. Leaning closer, the blonde man states he wants to know all of the man's information. He reassures him that all personal information will be managed strictly for game analysis only. Renji looks flustered, thinking the man is bad news as he is asked to join. He politely declines the offer, stating he prefers to play at his own pace. The man smiles, saying archers are valuable and to let him know if he changes his mind. Announcing his departure, the man says it is a shame and begins to walk away. He puts a hand on Renji's shoulder, declaring them rivals until Renji joins a clan. As the man leaves, Renji stands stunned, questioning why he was invited to the game. Feeling exhausted by the encounter, Renji decides that he will take a break for now. Raina invites the flower-haired girl to the forest, making Renji wonder when they became friends. The flower-haired girl panics, apologizing profusely for her earlier rudeness and begging forgiven. Renji says he is logging out for dinner and presses the logout button on his menu. In the real world, Renji lies in bed wearing his VR headset as he wakes up. A thought bubble appears. Noting that the current time is 5:30 in the evening, he sits up on his bed, thinking he has an hour and a half until dinner. A close-up shows his eye as he hears a strange laugh coming from outside his room. He thinks to himself that his sister seems to be having fun every single day. There, he walks downstairs, thinking about how his parents are not currently living with him. A flashback shows his affectionate parents as he recalls they moved for his father's job. Opening the refrigerator, he explains that he and his older sister live together now. He plans dinner, deciding to make omelets and reminding himself to go shopping tomorrow. In the kitchen, he begins preparing the meal by washing lettuce in a bowl. The microwave runs in the background as he continues with his cooking preparation. While mopping the floor, his sister calls out from off-screen asking what's for dinner. He looks up and answers that he is making omelets for their evening meal. His sister, an avid VR gamer, appears with her headset on and says she'll come at 7. Renji agrees, thinking they set strict meal times so as not to reduce their gaming hour. While flipping an omelet, he considers asking her to cook if his playtime increase. A clock on the wall shows 7 o'clock as they both say grace before eating. As Renji takes a bite of his food, his sister asks if his new game is fun. He replies that it's best played alone, and she offers to lend him her game. Over a view of their meal, Renji refuses her offer, and she calls him stingy. While sipping a drink, Renji wonders if his sister can even play an MMO, assuming she plays romance game. His sister's eyes sparkle as she excitedly says that either type of game is fine with her. She begins talking animatedly about her game, prompting Renji to think she has started her Otami game talk. Inside him, she complains about a new character being hard to win over, having failed the friend route many times. Renji finishes his meal and asks why she doesn't just use stats to win, calling it the evil way. She slams the table and yells that love is about the spark, not about stat. He considers her strategy, thinking that even seemingly unimportant characters in his game might have flagged. Then he walks back to his room, which has a nameplate with Renji on the door. Sitting at his computer, he muses that using minor characters could be a useful strategy. He opens his browser and navigates to the official website for Trace World Online. Reading the website, he learns about the game's AI, faction disputes, and age restriction. He discovers that it is not possible to add non-combat NPCs to a player's party. His eye widens slightly as he processes this new information from his research. He then reads about how experience points are calculated based on a player's contribution in battle. Annoyed, he crosses his arms, realizing Raina got more experience because her attack power is higher. He pauses his thoughts, looking up as if having a sudden realization. Next, he considers that if he plays his cards right, he can level up with ease. His new idea is to exploit the power struggles between different enemy faction. Back in the game, he decides to buy a new bow and arrows for his strategy. He proudly holds up his new archer's bow, which gives a bonus to his dexterity. While he considers the bow's damage, an announcement for the 8 p.m. rankings is made. Renji turns in surprise toward the guild counter where the announcement originated. He examines the leaderboard, seeing Raina in the top 10 and the top player at level 19. For a moment, he notes the flower-haired girl is level 13, creating a gap between them in a few hours. Stating that he has a plan, he navigates a menu to acquire the stealth skill. He then travels to the second field, a place called the Abyss Forest. Using his new stealth ability, he watches a large spider from behind some bush. He draws his bow, intending to lure the spider to where another monster species is located. After he fires an arrow as bait, the spider lunges forward toward its location. 20 minutes later, Renji is shown panting and exhausted from his effort. An archer laments his inability to find a specific monster while noting others attack relentlessly. A flashback shows the archer being violently thrown by a giant spider's leg. Exhausted and out of mana, he rests against a tree, admitting it will not be easy. He spots the giant spider in the distance and hopes to avoid an encounter. While hiding, he sees a giant snake slithering along the same path as the spider. Seizing the opportunity, the archer fires an arrow to provoke the snake from behind a tree. The giant spider and the snake are startled and turn to face each other. A versus graphic appears, pitting the giant spider against the giant snake. The archer then notices another snake approaching, drawn by the sounds of the confrontation. He fires more arrows into the ground, intending for the new snake to join the fight. The archer smiles, holding his bow, as his plan comes together successfully. A chaotic battle erupts in the forest as the monsters begin fighting each other. Peeking from behind a tree, the archer celebrates the success of his strategy. He continues to fire arrows, carefully managing aggro to keep the monsters fighting. As system notifications pop up, he thinks he just has to wait for the battle to end. A caption indicates that 1.5 hours have passed since the monster battle started. Renji stands among the dropped items, happy with his haul and new rank of second place. Having leveled up significantly, he decides to carefully read the skill descriptions while allocating points. He reviews his archery skills, noting that the impact skill is essential, just like Raina. Suddenly, he sees that the stealth skill is IND dependent. Realizing he needs to raise that stat. He also plans to improve the passive skills that boost his highest parameters, AGI and Dex. His updated status screen displays his new level of 22 and allocated stat. Excited by his improved accuracy, he decides to test his new abilities on a nearby monster. A sudden notification sound interrupts him, and he looks around wondering what did I. A system window appears before him, announcing the start of a special quest. He wonders what specific conditions he met to trigger a quest that only certain players receive. The quest details list the conditions for acceptance, including not having died once. He focuses intently on the screen, trying to figure out the special trigger for the quest. With a flash of insight, he realizes the condition must have been playing solo. He runs off, determined to continue playing at his own pace and avoid unwanted attention. Renji looks down, contemplating the idea of acquiring a spirit for himself. He remembers seeing spirits in an anime and thinks getting one would be beneficial. Deciding to consider it later, he assumes being special must have many merit. He puts the thought aside to focus on his immediate goals for the time being. A narration explains he continued hunting and eventually earned the title Grass-Spit Hunter. The scene shifts to the surface layer of the Abyss Forest where two players are walking. Flower-haired girl praises Raina for completing a quest so quickly. She explains that if she were alone, she would have died and lost her equipment. Raina replies that at worst one would just be naked, which is better than disappearing. The flower-haired girl gets flustered, clarifying that clothes are just for appearance. She then compliments Raina, saying she is the one being helped by the healing. Feeling inadequate, the flower-haired girl says she is not skilled enough to do that. Raina tells her that she is suited for rear support and they should use their strength. The flower-haired girl listens to the advice and seems to understand her role. She thinks that only aggressive players go to the front lines, questioning a full attack build. The fox-eared girl, Raina, hesitates for a moment while considering their next move. Flower-haired girl says she wants to get a title, noting some increase EXP and drop. She then expresses doubt that she would be able to acquire one herself. Raina suggests the fastest way is a first-time boss kill, which shocks her companion. The flower-haired girl protests from the bushes, saying it is impossible for them. Raina begins dragging her friend, insisting they try, while the girl yells that she will be defeated. The flower-haired girl pleads with Raina not to proceed in that direction. Raina ignores her and draws her bow with a determined look as her friend panics behind her. A large, shadowy, bear-like monster suddenly appears in front of them. A text panel states that the monster's attack was completely unseen. The flower-haired girl gasps Raina's name as she witnesses the sudden attack. With a look of shock and concern, she asks if Raina is okay. Raina lies defeated on the ground as her friend apologizes, asking where they are. Raina thanks her for saving her before she died, but the girl insists it was her fault. The flower-haired girl explains that she froze when the boss emerged from a magic circle. Flower-haired girl recalls how Raina was hit by a wind blade while protecting her. Raina asks if she saw the boss's technique, and the girl confirms she saw it faintly. The flower-haired girl looks startled, while Raina looks on with an annoyed expression. Crying, the flower-haired girl apologizes for being useless, but Raina tells her it is fine. Raina says it was her fault for forcing the situation and suggests they stop for the day. Raina internally concludes there must be a stat or skill difference between them. The next day, in the second field, Renji is shown fighting a large bear monster. After defeating the forest bear, Renji looks at his drop list and MVP reward. He walks along, thinking the bear was an easier target than a rabbit due to its size. Renji stops suddenly, looking up as if he has just heard something unexpected. A notification appears in his view, showing an incoming call from Raina. He answers the call as Raina's voice asks if it is him. Raina asks if he can come to the guild in the second town, and he agrees. She says she will be waiting and hangs up before he can respond further. Renji sighs, thinking she is impulsive and is likely planning another boss fight. While walking toward the town, Renji reminds himself that he needs to buy more arrow. He arrives at the guild in the second town, where Raina calls out to him. Raina nervously apologizes for calling him over, and Renji asks if something is wrong. She explains that she challenged the boss of the Abyss Forest, which shocks Renji. Renji thinks to himself that Raina is the reckless type of player he has been avoiding. Raina continues, stating that she could not land a hit, and their compatibility was terrible. Renji asks if the boss is specialized in evasion, and she confirms that is part of it. She speculates that the boss has extremely high AGI and INT stats, which are defined. Renji is shocked, realizing that high INT allows for quick situational judgment and attack switching. Raina compares their stats, explaining the boss's wind attack is invisible without high INT. Looking at the guild windows, Renji begins to understand the implications of their stat difference. Raina then asks if he would be willing to defeat the boss for her by himself. Renji protests, suggesting they go together since he can see the attacks and won't be a burden. Raina considers the severe penalties for dying in a party, such as losing equipment. Renji nervously says he doesn't mind, but he wants to challenge the boss with a comfortable margin. Renji looks up, stating he wants to challenge things himself, even if he fails. Raina looks down sadly, admitting she is very frustrated by her recent defeat. Renji laments his own past inability to even stand on the battlefield to contribute. Raina says she was stunned by the rankings and asks how he leveled up so much alone. She continues, recalling his cleverness even when fighting grass rabbits and little spider. Raina concludes that Renji's quick thinking has always been effective in their fight. A woman in archery attire says she envies his freedom, which is unlike her strict training. Renji looks down with resolve, saying he wants to fight and grow stronger with them. Raina begins to respond to his offer but trails off with hesitation. She explains that another player might get the title they want if they do not hurry. Renji starts to add another point to the conversation, saying, "and also." Raina grabs his shirt, insisting his tactical mind is what they need to succeed. She points out that he is rank 2, asking who else could do it if not him. Leaning over a flustered Renji, she teases him by saying he got carried away. Renji smiles, thinking it might be easy with their stat gap, and encourages her. Renji stands in the forest with his bow, thinking about a time he used to believe something. A giant two-headed bear, the second field boss, suddenly appears and roars before him. He looks up in shock, commenting on the immense size of the monster. Despite his surprise, Renji holds his bow steady and prepares for the fight. His expression shifts to panic as he suddenly finds himself unable to move his body. The bear rolls into a ball as a notification says he failed an intimidation check. As the bear roars and charges, Renji internally screams at his body to move. He remains paralyzed, unable to react to the incoming attack from the bow. The force of the attack sends him flying backwards amidst a shower of rock. He winces and cries out in pain from the powerful impact of the blow. Stumbling to his feet, he realizes that he is in danger of dying. He panics, exclaiming that his HP is critical after being grazed by small rock. With his HP at 110, he runs away, yelling that he forgot to buy potion. While fleeing, he realizes Raina must have survived because she invested points into HP. The bear stands and roars as Renji resolves to find a way to fight it from a distance. Renji runs in a large circle, realizing he must fight the bear boss from the field's edge. He pulls an arrow, thinking that this tedious kiting strategy is his only choice. There, he prepares an attack, calling out the name of his double shot skill. Releasing the arrows, he believes he can win as long as his attacks land. The bear boss flinches as the arrows seemingly make contact with its head. Renji watches from afar as the bear roars, realizing his attack was ineffective. He looks on with a confused expression, questioning what is happening. Inside him, he notices the bear has been roaring and waving its arms for a while. The bear boss is revealed to be protecting two cubs. Its intimidation not reaching Renji. Renji's eye widens as he has a sudden, shocking realization about the encounter. The bear boss unleashes a powerful attack that tears up the ground in front of Renji. He yells in surprise, realizing the windblade attack is much stronger than he imagined. The two cubs transform into a two-headed monster that attacks him with incredible speed. Monster lands a heavy blow, sending Renji flying backwards as he cries out. He scrambles away in panic as the two-headed monster looms over him, yelling that it is too close. Renji tumbles backward through the air after being struck by the monster's powerful attack. He lands and aims his bow, thinking he must shoot while the monster is still close. Then he activates his skill, preparing to fire a 3-arrow double shot at the bow. The two-headed monster swipes its arm, deflecting the incoming arrows with a blur of motion. Renji looks on with a confused expression, wondering what just happened to his attack. He notices an arrow on the ground near the monster's paw and questions if it bent. The monster lets out a loud roar, causing Renji to look up with a startled expression. As the monster charges forward, Renji quickly dodges to the side, exclaiming it was close. While rolling on the ground, he fires another 3-arrow double shot at the monster. The arrows are once again deflected, this time by a visible barrier of swirling wind. Renji stares with a look of certainty, realizing there is no doubt about the situation. A silhouette of the monster is shown, confirming it is protected by an armor of wind. The monster internally calculates that Renji's attacks have a low hit rate and reduced power. Renji tells himself not to panic, believing there must be a strategy to overcome this. He looks over his shoulder, wondering what another person would do in this situation. Renji grits his teeth with a determined expression, resolving to fight back. His eye narrows as he focuses on finding and striking the monster's weak point. Kneeling on the ground, he declares that he will not die without a fight. He decides he must experiment with different tactics to find a way to win. The two-headed monster roars and swipes its claws, tearing up the ground again. Renji slides across the ground while drawing his bow, preparing a counterattack. He fires his arrows at point-blank range in a zero-distance shot. The arrows strike the monster's heads, but it only seems to enrage it further. Looking back in surprise, Renji notes the ineffectiveness of his close-range attack. He observes the monster, noting its attack power has slightly increased, but its accuracy is unchanged. Renji has an idea about a weapon that can nullify the opponent's defense. He spots something on the ground and exclaims that he has found it. Next, he picks up a sharp object, wondering about the existence of such a weapon. A text panel explains his new plan to use fixed damage and defense-ignoring attack. He prepares his bow again, winking as he calls out his double shot skill. Renji's arrow hits the two-headed bear monster, which roars in response. He smiles and clenches his fist, relieved that his attack successfully landed. Believing a steady approach is best, He fires a rapid volley of arrow. The monster is struck by several more arrows, but grits its teeth and endures them. A close-up shows the monster's mouth twitching with rage from the continuous assault. It suddenly begins deflecting all of Renji's incoming arrows with its claw. Renji shouts in disbelief, shocked that the monster can block his attack. He realizes the monster is concentrating wind energy around its arms to create a barrier. From a distance, Renji yells that it is cheating as he continues to fire. A close-up shows one of his arrows shattering against the monster's claw. The bear monster continues to effortlessly deflect multiple arrows with its wind-enhanced claw. Renji becomes extremely frustrated, his face contorted with anger at the stalemate. He throws a tantrum, yelling that it is impossible to defeat the boss this way. The two-headed monster looks on with an unimpressed expression, grunting at his outburst. Monster then throws a bow at Renji, who panics and yells at the unexpected attack. Renji leaps backward to avoid sharp rocks erupting from the ground, dropping his bow. While running, he realizes he cannot deflect the wind blades or get close to the monster. He stops for a moment, having a sudden thought about the nature of the attack. For a moment, he reasons that a bow cannot deflect wind because it is not a physical attack. With a look of understanding, he exclaims that the boss's wind ability is magic. He deduces the boss's wind armor is a defense spell that constantly consumes its MP. As the two-headed monster looks strained, Renji shouts for it to run out of MP. Renji smiles confidently, having figured out the monster's weakness and retrieving his bow. The monster stumbles and makes pain noises as its magical energy depletes. Two-headed monster turns and flees in panic as Renji watches from a distance. Holding an arrow, Renji thinks to himself that the situation is a little pitiful. He aims his bow, stating that without magic, the boss is no different from a small fry. Renji confidently declares that the victory is high. He draws back his bow, preparing to fire a volley of arrows at the fleeing monster. The arrows strike the two-headed monster, which roars in pain from the multiple impact. Renji reviews his multiple reward notifications after defeating the boss, commenting that it took a long time. He then sees a new special quest that requires him to fight solo for an hour with low HP. Realizing his current low HP is perfect, he decides to use skill points to raise his maximum health. He increases his max HP, and his current HP rises proportionally, keeping the ratio the same. Feeling confident, he celebrates his plan to easily defeat the boss again to clear the quest. Another quest appears with a similar low HP condition, but this one requires 2 hours of combat. Concluding he cannot complete the new quest here, he decides he must travel to a different field. Before leaving, he opens his menu to acquire some perception skills. Feeling a little uncertain, he notices that the required skill points for abilities have decreased from what they were before. With a sudden realization, he wonders if this is an effect from one of his new title. A text box confirms his Dark Spirits Observation Target title increases his aptitude for some skill. Pleased with this convenient new perk, Renji walks confidently through the grassy field. He checks his map showing his path from the southern field toward the second town. While walking, he thinks about how he could complete some of his subjugation quests on the way. His thoughts are interrupted when he spots a giant white snake attacking a person in the distance. Renji encounters a large spider monster with a snake's head, remarking on his recent struggle. With a look of disgust, he exclaims that he is being completely surrounded by them. He then wonders how a giant snake managed to approach him without his notice. A notification confirms his suspicion that monsters can use stealth skills as the snake slither. Realizing a one-on-one fight is impossible, he decides to flee from the giant snake. He resolves to always keep his detection skills active after encountering such dangerous monster. Changing his plans to visit the third town, he decides to return to the second. He walks past a small slug-like creature on the ground, thinking he does not want to die. The small creature follows him and climbs onto his shoulder without his knowledge. A quest completion notification appears, and he wonders if the game is easy or difficult. He runs off, comically apologizing in his mind to the two-headed bear he defeated. Renji arrives at a street market in the second town at night and is greeted. He walks through the market, observing that players can set up their own stall. Suddenly, he looks at a food stall, thinking he should eat something to recover his health. While viewing a holographic menu, he learns that some dishes can increase his stat. At a nighttime food stall, Renji smiles and orders 1 calzone from the vendor. He pays for the food, placing 4 coins on the counter that amount to 400 G. Holding the steaming food, he says it looks delicious for a game and prepares to eat. He takes a large bite out of the calzone he just bought from the stall. While chewing, he notes the ambiguous taste and receives a notification for an AGI +5 buff. Later, looking up at the night sky, he wonders what his next course of action should be. Sitting alone at an outdoor table, he decides to contact Raina to see what she is doing. A pair of furry, pointed ears twitches upon receiving a notification sound. Raina answers the call with another girl beside her, asking Renji about the forest. Renji explains he just arrived in the 3rd town and asks if they should meet up. A map shows a cave between the 2nd and 3rd towns, which Renji notes is difficult alone. He adds that the cave is dark and requires night vision, which he had at level 3. Raina tells him he should be fine and instructs him to come to the fighting arena. She says she will send him the correct route via DM, and he thanks her. Renji walks through an archway into the 3rd town, thinking the journey was surprisingly easy. Renji recalls a past fight, thinking about his low HP and a difficult skeleton bow. He remembers the boss, the Bone King, being defeated by a single arrow. In the present, Raina asks about the location of the fighting arena. Renji finds a large coliseum-like building at night and comments on its size. He peeks through a large wooden door and says good evening to whoever is inside. An NPC receptionist welcomes him to the fighting arena from behind a counter. Renji is startled by the NPC and explains that he only wants to go inside. The receptionist directs him toward a door, which he approaches while thanking her. Heavy wooden door to the arena creaks as he pushes it open. From inside, the sounds of clashing swords echo throughout the building. He sees a long-haired elf woman in a kimono swiftly cutting down a skeleton. Renji watches from the doorway, impressed by the fight he is witnessing. The elf woman maintains a focused expression as she continues her battle. Renji notes how easily she is defeating them and comments on her unusual sword. The elf woman holds her 2 swords in a ready stance, awaiting the next enemy. Raina turns around from her seat in the arena stands and greets Renji. He approaches Raina and her friend, confirming his arrival and thanking them for their help. Raina explains that the crowd is there to watch the fighter, who is ranked number 1. A skeleton warrior with a tattered cape and a sword charges forward in the arena. The elf woman's foot lands on a large stone block, kicking it into the air. While performing an acrobatic flip, Raina identifies the elf woman as Isoy, a sword saint. A text box details the arena's rules for paying to fight previously defeated monster. Raina explains to Renji that there are no experience points or death penalties here. Renji is surprised when Raina reveals that she and Isoy are in the same party. Raina explains that Izayui is a strong upperclassman from her high school who is teaching her. The fight ends, and Renji, Raina, and her friend applaud from their seat. As Izayu walks up the stairs, Renji calls out to her, saying, "Good work." The elf woman stops on the stairs and turns her head to look back. A close-up of Izayui's eye shows Renji's reflection as she silently observes him. Isoy suddenly appears in front of Renji, hand on her sword, looking at him questioningly. A sword is suddenly held to Renji's neck, causing him to react with surprise. The elf woman, Raina, holds the sword and asks him if he wants to have a match. Renji looks at Raina in confusion, questioning her sudden challenge. A system notification appears on his screen asking if he will accept the PvP request. An announcement declares the match between Isoy and Renji as spectators identify him. The crowd murmurs that a bow user is at a disadvantage against a sword wielder. Renji panics under the sudden pressure, wondering why this is happening to him. Raina resolves that her approach to battle will not change, even against another player. Renji, at level 23, looks concerned about the level difference between them. Raina, at level 25, thinks that the fight is not impossible for him to win. Deciding to use all her abilities, Raina tells Renji that he can go first. Renji holds his bow and looks at her with a questioning expression. Raina activates a concealment skill and says she will not hold back. Gripping his bow, Renji thinks that the situation is still advantageous for him. He declares he won't be defeated easily and activates his quick double shot chaser skill. The elf woman thinks to herself that her opponent is stronger than she initially thought. Looking down from a high platform in the arena, she notices something with surprise. She then dismisses the threat, stating that it is not a big deal. Turning around, the elf woman prepares to face the unseen opponent on the arena floor. She identifies an incoming attack, calling out the skill name Double shot. Renji leaps through the air while firing a volley of arrows at her position. The elf woman calmly raises her sword and deflects an incoming arrow with ease. In the audience, Raina and her companion comment on the high speed of both combatant. Renji reacts with surprise to his failed attack, saying this is getting interesting. The elf woman is surprised that none of the 6 arrows managed to hit her. She looks toward Renji's location and acknowledges that he is indeed very fast. A text panel explains that her evasion was a complete read of his attack pattern. Renji realizes she has a powerful skill and hears her begin to chant a spell. His eyes widen in shock as he questions if she is summoning spirit. Empowered by wind magic, the elf woman dashes forward across the arena at high speed. A volley of arrows flies through the air toward an unseen target. The elf woman deflects the incoming arrows with a swift movement of her sword. Renji watches with a shocked expression as his attack is countered so easily. He falls backward onto the ground, exclaiming in disbelief at what just happened. Renji realizes she deflected his arrow back, noting he would have died if it hit. The elf woman comments on the attack's speed, wondering if it was a stealth skill. Renji clutches his chest, looking nervous after the close call with his own arrow. She tells him to stand up because she wants to continue their fight. He looks up at her from the ground with a determined but annoyed expression. Renji stands up, picks up his bow, and thanks her for waiting. He tells her that he will do his best to fight her properly. There, he shouts double shot triple barrage as he prepares to fire another volley. The elf woman gracefully dodges all the arrows that are fired at her. Renji grits his teeth in frustration as he watches her evade his attack. As she runs through the missed arrows, he yells that it is not over yet. The elf woman looks on with a surprised expression, her swords crossed before her. She kicks off a stone block on the ground while chanting a spell for wind. Renji recognizes the spell as Wind Spirit's Blessing, realizing she is using it again. With her spell active, she raises a sword and prepares to attack him directly. She closes the distance instantly, and Renji is forced to block her sword with his bow. He thinks to himself that he has no time to knock an arrow. A large sound effect illustrates the impact of her sword striking his bow. The elf woman looks down at him with a confused and questioning expression. Renji grabs the blade of her sword with his gloved hand, stopping her attack. He pulls her closer by the sword he is now holding onto. The elf woman looks down at him with an intrigued expression on her face. She tells Renji that he is an interesting person. Inside him, she then comments that his fighting style is not like one from a game. Renji looks up at her with a confused look, questioning what she means. He holds an arrow point blank, saying a sword cannot block it from this close. A large screen above the arena declares Isoy the winner as the audience applaud. Spectators in the stands comment that a bow user was at a disadvantage from the start. Renji sits on the ground, thinking about his complete defeat when a hand is offered. The elf woman Isoy helps him up, thanking him and saying she had fun. He takes her hand and agrees with her sentiment as he gets to his feet. Renji says he learned close combat is impossible, but she claims she only won using spirit. She offers to tell him how to get a wind spirit if he has other information. Renji's face lights up with excitement as he asks if her offer is serio. She asks if he wants to know about the dark or fire spirit, and he chooses dark. He thanks her and waves goodbye, and she tells him they can talk about fire later. Raina calls out to Renji and Isoy as they walk back toward the spectator stand. Raina and her friend greet them, with Raina saying, "Good work," with a surprised expression. Iseyo asks Raina if she has gone flying yet, stating she should return in 30 minutes. To pass the time, Iseyo suggests a party battle, which shocks Raina. A handwritten note from the other girl says she is fine with it and it will be fun. Renji thinks about the quest that requires him to travel from the second town. He clenches his fist with a determined expression and says he is ready to go. A text box appears, detailing the activation conditions for the Wind Spirit quest. He begins running from the second town with a timer showing 6 minutes and 45 seconds. A notification for Wind Spirit's interest appears, and he reacts with excitement. He runs along a path at night, needing to complete the journey without dying. Then he arrives at the starting town, out of breath with a time of 5 minutes and 17 seconds. He reads the next quest, Wind Spirit's Concern, which requires a solo run under 5 minutes. Bent over and exhausted, he notes that running at full speed for so long is difficult. He tightens his belt, determined to avoid monsters, and prepares to run again. Next, he dashes off at high speed across the cobblestone street. The timer shows 4 minutes and 57 seconds as he sprints toward his goal. A quest completion screen appears, listing rewards like new wind skills and a title. He shouts in celebration, startling a group of 3 nearby players. The 3 players stare at him as he looks back, confused by their attention. Renji retreats behind a pillar, thinking to himself that he got carried away. He turns around holding a ball of light and announces he is using spirit summoning. With a determined expression, he focuses his energy to cast the new spell. A system window prompts him to decide on a name for the lesser spirit. He considers what to name it, thinking about names associated with the wind. After thinking about various sounds, he finally settles on a name for the spirit. He confirms the name Rai and completes the spirit summoning wind spell. A magical sigil appears above his head before bursting into a flash of light. The light transforms into a swirling vortex of white. The light transforms into a swirling vortex of wind energy in the arena. Elfwoman watches from a distance, identifying his summon as a lesser wind spirit. A text box explains the spirit's ability to increase AGI at the cost of MP. Renji's appearance alters as he thinks about the greatest advantage of spirit magic. A close-up shows his eyes now have a unique, glowing geometric pattern in them. The small, fairy-like spirit is shown with text explaining its MP transferability. He realizes that if he can master this power, it will be a wonderful asset. Renji greets his new spirit, Rory, who cautiously says, "Nice to meet you." The small fairy-like spirit looks away with a flustered and blushing expression. Rory quickly turns and hides behind Renji's back with a small sound effect. The spirit floats on its back, thinking about how it was suddenly awakened. Renji says it is time to return to the arena as Rory peeks over his shoulder. A close-up shows the small spirit sleeping peacefully on Renji's shoulder. He walks through town, planning to practice with Rory after Isoy finishes her CPU battle. For a moment, he peeks around a corner into the arena, wondering if the three girls are still there. Renji is shocked to find Raina, Isoy, and their friend all lying defeated on the ground. Lying on the floor, Raina looks up at him and says, "Welcome back." He stands over her and asks what they were doing to end up like V. Raina sits up and explains they were defeated by a 10th floor Labyrinth bow. She says they were reenacting the fight against a CPU party to practice for it. Their friend shouts that she was holding them back and will die to atone. Renji tries to calm the crying girl, telling her that it is not her fault. A diagram details the 10th floor Labyrinth boss, an organized party of 18 goblin. Renji's eyes are shown in a close-up. As he processes the information about the enemy, he tells Raina their own party has a terrible balance, and she agrees with his assessment. Isoy turns and invites Renji to join them, to which he reacts with surprise. Renji thinks that while their party would still be unbalanced, more fighting power is good. Raina explains that with him, they can warp to the unlocked floor instead of fighting. He states he has never been to the Labyrinth, but Raina says he can join her. Isoy looks thoughtful and suggests they act separately for the time being. Renji quickly changes his mind and insists that they should all go together. Isoy clarifies she wants to raise Raina and the other girls' levels before they go. Raina suggests they go tomorrow during her summer vacation, and the others agree they are free. Isoy says the morning is impossible for her and suggests they meet after she logs in. Renji expresses his excitement, and Raina internally calls him a battle maniac. The scene shifts to the real world, showing the exterior of Renji's house at 7 p.m. Inside, a girl with brown hair eats with chopsticks and calls out to her older sister. In a messy room, Renji eats and suggests to his sister that they take turns making dinner. His sister questions his tone, and he rephrases his request more politely in a chibi panel. She agrees with a smile, noting that it is rare for him to make such a suggestion. Renji explains that a friend got him into an interesting game where he just acquired a new power. His sister says she might start playing, and he replies that he will not lend her anything. He looks surprised and begins to say something else about the situation. His sister cheerfully reveals that she already has a physical copy of the game software. Renji stares in complete shock as she holds up the game case. He panics and picks up his phone, asking if he has reached the police. His sister explains that the game has been sold out everywhere since its release. Renji, sweating in disbelief, accuses her of stealing the game or buying from a scalper. With a deadpan expression, she tells him to stop treating her like a criminal. He defensively clarifies that he received his copy from a friend and asks why he would lie. She reveals she got it as a prize for being a top 10 beta tester, surprising them both. Suddenly, she then cheerfully asks him to help her with game strategy, since he has a head start. In a kitchen, a girl sitting at a table calls her brother stingy. The brother looks at his phone, asking for advice and suggesting it is good to increase AGI. His sister smiles and says she will increase her VIT instead, which surprises him. A text panel shows a conversation where she says he is on dinner duty tomorrow. The scene shifts to the next day, showing the entrance to an icy labyrinth. Inside, a party of 4 stands as a cat-eared girl explains their goal is the 10th floor bow. She shows a map stating she will lead from the 6th floor due to trap. Renji thinks that although he can also detect traps, he is only level 1. He asks a female party member if she has enough potions, and she nervously says no. Renji then offers her a large bag filled with potions, looking surprised as he do. The girl is shocked by the large quantity and says she cannot accept them. A trade window displays the items as Renji notes they would be expensive to buy. The girl explains the potions are a thank you for his help at the guild. Renji offers to trade 20,000 G for them, shocking the other two girls with the amount. The fourth party member interrupts, saying no, and indicating she wants to go. A few minutes later, the scene transitions after the party's discussion. Renji returns, having compromised on a price of 10,000 G for the potion. Raina cheerfully suggests they should formally create a party, and Renji agree. Isoy abruptly intervenes, saying no and pushing Renji away from the other. She explains they must remain in separate parties so Renji does not absorb experience. Isoy walks ahead, saying it is time to go, and Raina mentions the contribution score. Renji stands alone and confused as the three girls walk into the labyrinth. He realizes Isoy is also in a separate party and worries he is being excluded. Walking by himself, Renji insists he is not lonely and wanted to play solo anyway. He begins fighting on his own, shooting arrows that successfully hit two goblins. The group ventures deeper, and Renji observes that enemies are 10 levels above the floor number. Girl Yua, now level 18, confirms the level scaling and that she leveled up. Raina draws her bow, realizing the 10th floor will have challenging level 20 enemy. Renji thinks they are pushing Yu too hard and wonders if his potions are the reason. Isoy tells Raina that she thinks this particular trait of hers is a good quality. The elf woman gives a thumbs up, stating that all enemies should be used for experience. Renji tells Raina's friend she will have a tough time, and she reacts with surprise. She asks if he is cheering her on, and he replies that he is encouraging her. The party stands in the cave as someone explains the 5th floor has 6 goblins. They learn the boss floor is behind a large door, allowing them time to prepare. Raina tells Renji that the terrain is easy to understand, and he questions what she means. A close-up shows Renji's eye as he focuses on the path ahead of them. He confirms her statement is true as he watches the other two girls walk down a corridor. The elf woman tells her companion to hurry, but the girl says she is fine at level 19. Raina asks Renji to join the fighting, and he agrees to participate from this point on. As he prepares to move forward, Renji's expression changes as he notices something. He suddenly stops and looks up with a shocked expression, questioning what he is seeing. A close-up of his eye shows his complete disbelief and alarm at the unseen threat. Raina and the other girl turn around in concern, with one calling out Renji's name. The elf woman also looks back with a serious expression, sensing the same danger. Cattier girl suddenly trips and pitches forward onto the stone floor. She lets out a long scream as she falls into a dark pit. A close-up shows her foot catching on the ground as she cries out. Renji watches in stunned silence, looking completely confused by the event. He then finds himself sitting alone in a large, dilapidated circular arena. Still on the ground, he calls out for Isoy, realizing he is by himself. Isoy's voice reaches him, asking if he has arrived at the underground battle arena. She smiles knowingly and asks if he understands what is happening to him. Isoy explains that this labyrinth contains a special boss on a hidden floor. The conditions to meet it include a low party level and a first-time challenger. She reveals with a sly smile that she was aiming for this and thanks Renji. Renji panics, telling her to wait and find a place where they can regroup. Isoy ignores him, instead running down a corridor and telling the others to hurry. As she runs, she thinks that Renji is fast, so he will probably be fine. Alone in the arena, Renji looks horrified and frantically denies his situation. Numerous magic circles suddenly appear on the ground as a character shouts about their overwhelming number. Renji's face shows pure panic as he reacts to the sudden ambush. Goblins begin to materialize from the circles, with a knight already taking form. The full enemy party is revealed, consisting of various goblin classes like mages and warrior. Renji grips his weapon and shouts in frustration at the difficult situation he now faces. A system window identifies the enemy as a special 5th floor goblin party led by a goblin general. He yells with frantic determination that he will fight, vowing to complain if he die. There, he observes the goblin horde, thinking that he is alone and has never fought such a large group. Renji shouts that the fight is impossible and that he should have been warned about the eye. He trails off as he has a sudden realization about his circumstance. Clenching his fist, he remembers that he is not actually fighting by himself. Renji casts Spirit Summoning, Wind, calling out for his spirit, Rory, who appears before him. He apologizes to Rory for the sudden crisis and asks for her cooperation in the fight. The small spirit looks up at Renji with a slightly surprised expression on her face. Rory floats with a tired and reluctant expression, sighing that it is a pain. Renji pleads with the pouting spirit, asking her to please help him out. He is suddenly startled by a loud screeching sound from the goblin horde. A large goblin with an axe roars and begins to charge toward Renji. He quickly tells his spirit companion to hide because the situation has become dangerous. The spirit peeks from his collar, saying she will just fly if she gets shaken off. A group of goblins, including mages, a thief, and archers, rushes forward to attack. Renji observes the charging enemies more closely, noticing a detail about their formation. He realizes only some goblins are attacking, while the knight in general remain still. Unsure why they are not moving, he considers it a temporary relief and readies his bow. A close-up shows a goblin archer's hand gripping an arrow on its bowstring. Two of the goblin archers draw their bows at the same time, preparing to shoot. Renji mirrors their action, drawing his own bow and taking aim at the enemy. He thinks that, while 3 archers are a problem, they likely have low health. With a determined expression, he resolves to defeat the enemy archers first. He uses a triple double shot skill, successfully taking down all 3 goblin archer. Renji holds his bow, calmly assessing the goblin party positioned in front of him. He observes the enemy formation and considers what his first priority in the battle should be. His attention is drawn to a small, robed goblin standing behind the larger knight. He identifies the robed goblin as a healer, realizing he had not noticed it initially. Renji deduces that the healer is using the stationary knights as a protective shield. A smaller goblin leaps forward to attack as Renji resolves that he must defeat the healer. He swiftly dodges the lunging goblin, which lands on the ground in front of him. Renji fires an arrow into a different goblin at close range, calling it too slow. He moves quickly, thinking the enemies that moved first are easy to defeat in one hit. A goblin knight announces that its group is now beginning to move forward to attack. 2 goblin knights with swords and shields advance together in a standard formation. Renji shouts that he will defeat them all and prepares to use his double shot skill. His arrows successfully hit 2 of the attacking goblins, who cry out as they are struck. He takes aim for his last shot, targeting the healer in the back row. A goblin knight with a helmet lets out a loud and frustrated roar. Renji winks and tells his spirit companion to be quiet, saying he expected her reaction. The goblin general holds its sword and shield, asking Renji what his move will be. 4 armored goblin knights stand in a menacing line, ready to attack him. Renji realizes he will be surrounded if he retreats, as the goblins advance in 2 groups. A tactical diagram shows the knights flanking him, so he decides to evade sideway. The wind spirit Roi suddenly pushes Renji from behind, propelling him with a gust. Roi floats with her eyes closed, asking if he is going to help her. Renji agrees with determination and asks her to help him break through to the right. The spirit looks on with a focused expression as she prepares to assist him. Propelled by a swirl of wind at his feet, Renji leaps quickly to the side. 2 of the goblin knights are caught off guard by his sudden burst of speed. He successfully dashes past the 2 goblins, landing safely behind their initial position. Renji looks back, amazed that Rory also created a headwind to slow the goblin. He smiles confidently, saying that with this much freedom of movement, he can do anything. With Rory on his shoulder, Renji asks her to put wind on his next arrow. Renji considers his archery skill, which provides an accuracy correction based on his level. He reasons that if the skill only improves hit rate, it would be meaningless for skilled player. Deciding on a different approach, he prepares to use his double shot skill. His spirit, Rory, casts a skill of her own called Quick Chaser. The goblin knights in the distance are shown with a question mark, confused by the spell. Renji realizes he does not have to shoot directly at his target to hit it. An arrow glows with energy as it flies through the air, its path altering. Rai gestures with her hand, appearing to guide the arrow's flight path midair. The arrow curves around a goblin's shield and strikes it from the side. Renji says, "All right," in satisfaction, while Rory floats beside him with a smug look. The Goblin General states that this development is just as he had expected. Large Goblin General lets out a loud shout, seemingly issuing a command to his troop. Renji thinks that their shields are no longer a problem, but he looks surprised. A goblin priest in the back raises its staff, which begins to glow with magic. Renji and Rory look on in shock and disbelief at this new development. Renji shouts in disbelief as the goblin priest begins to resummon its fallen ally. A close-up shows the goblin priest holding its glowing staff, ready to cast a spell. Renji watches with a shocked expression as the number of enemies starts to increase. He sees the previously defeated goblin knights being revived and standing up again. Inside him, he concludes that he must ignore the knights and prioritize defeating the healer. As he makes his decision, a sudden magic attack strikes him in the back. The goblin magician appears behind him, having reduced his health to 30 HP. An arrow then hits Renji, and his health drops even further to 17 HP. A tactical map shows how he was flanked after being distracted by the healer. He thinks that the weak enemies are still too damaging for his low HP. Another arrow strikes his side, and his health critically drops to just 9 HP. He grips a new arrow tightly, preparing to make a desperate counterattack. With a look of intense focus, he draws his bow and takes careful aim. He changes his target, declaring he must defeat the general first, and releases his shot. The goblin general effortlessly deflects the incoming arrow with its large metal shield. Renji holds his bow, concluding his arrows are being repelled by some kind of protection. He theorizes that he must defeat all the minions before the main enemies will attack. Drawing his bow again, he asks his spirit Rory to support him so his shots will hit. Rory nods confidently, telling him not to worry about her remaining magic point. A volley of arrows hits multiple summoned goblins who cry out as they are defeated. Renji runs across the arena, calling the repetitive cycle of defeating minions tedious work. He realizes that after he defeats the 8 minions, they are simply resummoned after a time. Firing another arrow, he counts the 9th wave of summons, hoping for a change. He thinks that if the 10th wave is the same, he will have to change his strategy. An image of Isoy appears in his mind, calling herself a war criminal for not helping. Renji looks over at Roy, noticing his spirit companion is exhausted and about to fall asleep. 2 of the previously stationary goblin knights suddenly roar and begin to move forward. All 4 goblin knights now charge towards him as he wishes for the situation to change. Renji prepares an ice-enchanted arrow but notes that nothing seems to be happening. A close-up of his eye reveals his confusion as he questions the lack of any effect. The goblin general smirks, stating that it is about time for the next phase. A goblin knight suddenly screams in agony, clutching its stomach as it dissolves. Renji says he expected this, while his spirit companion Rory trembles beside him. The other goblin knights on the battlefield also begin to fizzle and disappear. Renji looks surprised, exclaiming that all the knights have vanished from the arena. The silhouette of another goblin is sent flying backward by a powerful shockwave. Renji is knocked off his feet by the force, crying out as he stumbles. He reaches out and catches his small spirit Rory to keep her safe. Holding Rory, Renji observes that the general is now enveloped in a red aura. The general's silhouette stands on a magic circle as its form begins to change. A close-up shows the goblin's mouth twisted into a wide, sharp-toothed grin. Its hand, now with black claws, firmly grips the hilt of its sword. The goblin's grip on the sword tightens in preparation for its next move. A large horn sprouts from the side of the general's head amidst dark energy. The transformed goblin general stands with its new horns and a dark aura. Goblins merge into a single muscular creature that Renji notes now looks more like an ogre. Crouching with Rory, Renji sees this as a chance now that he faces only one enemy. The special 5th floor boss is revealed as a large, armored goblin dual-wielding sword. Renji thinks that because the target is now much larger, it should be easier to hit. The goblin boss spreads its arms, causing chunks of rock to levitate from the arena floor. Renji looks up with a startled expression, questioning if the boss is throwing rocks at him. With a grimace, the boss hurls the floating rocks forward as projectile. A large rock flies directly toward Renji's face as he flinches back in surprise. He runs across the arena floor, dodging the barrage of stones crashing down around him. After evading the initial attack, he stops and looks around with a confused expression. A rock strikes him on the arm, making him cry out as he questions the attack's focus. The impact is strong enough to knock his bow from his grasp, sending it flying. He looks back over his shoulder, wondering if the focused assault is just his imagination. The large goblin boss looks on with a confident and menacing smirk on its face. A close-up of Renji's eyes shows his dawning realization as he considers a new possibility. He looks down and wonders aloud if the powerful goblin boss is just toying with him. The large goblin boss smirks with a confident expression, seemingly confirming Renji's suspicion. Renji shouts in frustration that the boss stopped attacking, leaving him with only 4 HP. He closes his eyes, telling himself to calm down to avoid a meaningless death. Renji opens a menu screen to select items that will restore his HP and MP. After drinking a health potion, he lets out a small sigh of relief. He turns to Rory, asking his tired spirit companion to stay with him a little longer. With his bow drawn, he declares swears he will defeat the boss with his best technique. A skill description explains his ability to instantly pull arrows from his inventory. A diagram shows him pulling a single arrow from his storage into the air. The diagram continues, showing him knocking multiple arrows to fire them in rapid succession. He plans to use his double shot skill as soon as its cooldown period ends. Then he calculates that this method allows him to fire a maximum of 12 arrows in 5 seconds. He recalls that he does not need to shoot directly at the target to land a hit. An arrow curves mid-flight, combining his skill's accuracy with Roy's trajectory-altering magic. The goblin boss growls, thinking that Renji should be able to hit it for sure. Renji decides to focus only on shooting arrows to break through the situation. He shouts, determined to fire the maximum number of arrows he possibly can. The goblin boss looks on with a surprised expression, grunting in confusion. Renji uses his double shot skill while Rory enchants one of the arrow. A volley of arrows flies toward the goblin boss, landing all around it. The boss cries out as 2 arrows successfully strike its head and shoulder. An arrow pierces the goblin boss's leg, causing it to cry out in pain. From a distance, the goblin boss looks over at Renji, who holds his bow. Renji understands the boss was planning to dodge his shots, but he has a plan. Aiming his bow again, he calls the boss's strategy a foolish one. The goblin boss shouts that Renji will lose because of his own confidence. An arrowhead suddenly appears right next to the surprised goblin boss's eye. Renji smirks, deciding to name his new homing attack Chase Arrow. The large goblin boss lets out a loud roar of frustration and pain. Renji smiles while holding arrows as his spirit Roe asks how many he can handle. System notifications appear, confirming the boss's defeat and listing his various quest and loot reward. Another notification informs him that he has unlocked an archer class change and a second job. He questions the archer change, wondering if there were different specializations within the class. A list displays his 3 class evolution choices: archer, sniper, and ranger. He exclaims, "Ranger!" He exclaims, "Ranger?" in surprise at seeing the third option on the list. Next, he reviews the descriptions for the archer classes and sees spirit mage is also an option. His finger moves to confirm his choice, deciding against a class that requires close combat. He celebrates as his status screen updates with level ups and his new class. Reviewing the quest conditions, he realizes the goblin boss was a higher level than him. He eats and worries about the difficulty of facing another special boss in the future. Deciding to move on, he activates his new spirit summoning, dark and fire skill. 2 summoning circles appear, prompting him to name the 2 new lower class spirit. He looks at the 2 circles, contemplating what he should name his new companion. A small dark-haired spirit in a kimono appears and introduces herself as Yami. A small spiky-haired fire spirit named Phi cheers with a raised fist. Renji greets his 3 small spirits who fly excitedly around him as he asks one to calm down. He explains that since they will be fighting in a cave, all 3 should come along. A dark-haired spirit lands on his head, prompting the wind spirit Rory to call out its name. All 3 spirits play atop his head as he wonders if it is more fun than flying. He says it is fine, but he would prefer them to be in a place where he can see them. Hearing a crackling sound, he covers his ears and asks Phi if his hair is burning. Distracted by the commotion on his head, he runs straight into a solid brick wall. A close-up shows his face squished against the wall from the impact. He falls to the floor in a heap as 2 female adventurers look on in surprise. One of the women shouts that a person came out of the wall, while the other recognizes Renji. Lying on the ground, Renji grabs his head and asks if it is okay. The cat-eared woman says she sees no problem, while the other woman realizes he means his hair. Renji tells Isoy that the fire spirit is burning his hair, but she cannot see it. The 3 spirits are shown bickering, with the dark spirit attempting to break up a fight. Isoy reassures Renji that his hair is fine because the other 2 spirits are protecting it. Still on the ground, Renji complains to Isoy about trapping him without warning, and she apologizes. Isoy sighs, disappointed that she failed to form a party and cannot fight alongside him. The group prepares to challenge the 10th floor, with Renji blaming Isoy for the delay. Renji asks to borrow arrows, and while the cat-eared woman refuses, the other woman offers a large bundle. The party stands before a large stone door marking the entrance to the 10th floor of the Labyrinth. Inside a cave, Renji drinks a potion and notes that the enemies were easy, but the traps were numerous. The cat-eared woman feels fired up by the challenging environment, while Renji thinks it is too soon to proceed. She passionately explains it is a chance to test her strength, which Renji finds overly intense. The cat-eared woman asks if there is a strategy, and Renji confirms that he has one. A diagram displays the 18 goblin enemy formation, detailing their different roles like healers and ranged support. An information panel describes the hobgoblins, who have high defense and are supported by healer. Renji explains their plan is to defeat the ranged goblins first to avoid a long, disadvantageous fight. The cat-eared woman says she had the same idea and asks if there is a problem with it. She then points out a single, weak-looking goblin, identifying it as the commander, which surprises Renji. The dark-haired woman explains to Renji that a commander is directing the goblins' attack. She elaborates that a commander allows the goblins to form groups and apply debuff. The woman concludes that the commander only runs away, which led to her party's previous defeat. Blonde woman in the kimono, Isoy, decides that their strategy will be to target the knights first. Isoy explains they should prioritize reducing enemy numbers, noting the knights' defense is not high. The cat-eared woman admits they lack specific information since they lost before reaching the knight. She agrees with the plan for now and thanks Renji for his input. Renji privately worries there might be other conditions that cause the knights to move. A large set of doors opens with a flash of light as someone says it is time to go. The party enters the 10th floor and finds themselves facing a large party of goblin. Cat-eared woman states that they have arrived and will proceed according to their plan. Renji counts the enemies and expresses his relief that it is not a special bow. The cat-eared woman orders the group to focus their attacks and tells Yu to support her. Isoy states she will go forward to draw the goblins' attention, leaving the knights to them. Isoy runs ahead alone into the cavern to act as a decoy against the goblin horde. The other female adventurer looks surprised, asking what the other creatures are. Isoy swiftly engages two goblins in close combat, slashing at them with her sword. Renji observes from a distance, noting that Isoy instantly gathered all the enemy's hate. Deciding she is too outnumbered, he prepares to use his spirit summoning ability to help. His three spirits, Yami, Rory, and Phi, appear together in a swirl of energy. Renji tells his spirits he will try a new technique, instructing them to attack the knight. In the cave, Isoy and her companion are shown fighting two goblin knights. Aiming his bow, Renji calculates that Yami's buff gives him just enough MP for his skill. The three spirits line up and chant, granting their divine protection to the attack. He activates his 100 arrow skill, and multiple magical circles appear in front of him. The arrow he fires is called Impact Blast as it shoots forward with force. Renji looks on with a focused expression and gives the command for the arrows to scatter. The single arrow he fired multiplies into a large volley that arcs toward the ceiling. A massive barrage of countless arrows is shown flying through the air in a wide spread. The arrows rain down around Isoy and her companion, who look up in surprise. A group of armored goblins are suddenly enveloped in a strange, fluffy white substance. The goblins and the white substance they were trapped in then dissipate into smoke. Two women ask Renji about the powerful technique, one asking him to teach her. Renji explains it was a new skill he learned from leveling up and is surprised himself. The cat-eared woman reminds her companion that they need to go help Isoy now. Elsewhere, Isoy is in combat, slicing through a large goblin with her sword. A goblin shaman in the background casts a spell, creating a pool of dark magic. Isoy responds by casting her own spell, Spirit Summoning Wind, which swirls around her. Her wind magic attacks several small tusked creatures scurrying across the ground. She realizes she is being drawn away from the hobgoblins by the shaman's tactic. A small goblin commander is shown pointing and giving orders to the other monster. Isoy holds her sword, thinking it will take too long to win without being healed. A voice calls out her name from off-panel, causing her to turn in surprise. Renji and the cat-eared woman appear, telling her to leave the ranged enemies to them. Isoy's foot takes a step as she says that they saved her. Isoy holds her swords behind her back, stating that if they will not run, they are her. She turns with a confident expression, finishing her thought by saying she will cut them down. A goblin with a mohawk lets out a cry of pain as it is defeated. After the battle, the party gathers as system notifications list their rewards for clearing the floor. A small, simplified creature asks about the 1200 MP cost, and Renji replies it was not enough. A young elf-like girl in a kimono answers a call, saying she will do her best. Isoy tells the rest of the party that she is going to make a phone call. A woman with short dark hair appears on the call, energetically asking if it is a good time. Renji recognizes the voice as the woman explains a quest has started and she needs help. The elf-like girl on the other end of the call agrees to send her location information. Elf-like girl then tells Isoy that she will go to the location herself. Renji asks Isoy how she knows the person who was just on the call. He smiles and raises a hand as he struggles to to find the words to explain. In a chibi panel, he explains to the surprised women that the person is his sister. In a forest, Renji runs toward an armored woman with cat ears, calling out to his sister. Renji runs toward the cat-eared woman, explaining his speed is enhanced by a spirit's blessing. He is suddenly distracted by her prominent chest armor, internally questioning its size. She proudly declares her chest has always been that way as Renji looks on unimpressed. For a moment, she then yells that she just wants to be noticed, revealing her true desire for attention. Renji internally compares her to her real-life self, noting her cute face but smaller chest. In a comedic chibi scene, the woman sits on Renji's back, complaining that she wants to die. Back to normal, Renji gets up, mentions his HP dropped, and says they should get back on topic. He asks if she thinks she can handle the new Bandit subjugation quest that has appeared. They look at a system screen, while Renji wonders why a rare quest like that would generate. The cat-eared woman asks if he knows the activation conditions before having a realization. She holds up a finger, guessing the condition was taking 0 damage for 24 hours. Renji asks if she played all night without sleeping, which she cheerfully confirms normal people don't do. In a brief flashback, her sister warns her that such a lifestyle will cause an early death. Renji suggests she level up more before the special quest, and asks if she wants his help. She explains that if he helps, he will defeat the enemy instantly, leaving nothing for her. The cat-eared woman tells Renji she is annoyed at being looked down upon. She stretches and declares that she will have Isoy help her instead. As she walks away, Renji follows, calling her a strange rancor with no friend. She turns back, suggesting he gather information on the next boss if he wants to help. Renji questions why he is the one who has to ask for the information. The woman runs off at high speed, and Renji is surprised by her pace. Standing alone, Renji considers that playing with her type might be more enjoyable. He looks at a map on a screen and decides where he will go next. The map displays the Abyssal forest, and he notes the twin bear is ahead. Deciding to challenge the next boss, he prepares to use spirit summoning. Wind. His wind spirit Rory appears and says they will run to the Abyssal forest. They arrive at the middle layer of the Abyssal forest, a dense and dark wood. Renji walks through the dim forest, noticing a strange black mist in the air. He finds it strange that there are no monsters, unlike the forest's outer layer. Suddenly, he stops walking as his foot touches the ground, sensing something is wrong. In a forest, Renji looks down and questions a magic circle on the ground. He looks closer at his surroundings, wondering what the purpose of the circle eye. His expression changes to one of shock as he suddenly looks up at something. A massive crystal-covered dinosaur-like creature emerges and lets out a powerful roar. Renji grits his teeth and squints, trying to withstand the creature's intimidating presence. A notification confirms he failed to resist the intimidation, and his body is paralyzed. His leg is shown frozen in place, unable to take a step forward. From a distance, he identifies the monster as a Tyrannosaurus of the earth element. He recalls that the previous forest boss was a twin head. As he observes the creature, Renji finds it strange for a dinosaur to be a mid-level boss in this forest. He decides he must move from his spot before the creature launches its next attack. The dinosaur's massive foot stomps the ground, causing it to crack violently near him. Renji looks back in alarm, wondering about the resulting cloud of dust and tremor. He realizes with concern that an attack coming from below would be very dangerous. The crystal dinosaur lowers its head as rocks begin to levitate all around it. Renji looks up at the dinosaur, nervously wondering if it is preparing an unavoidable attack. The creature slams its head into the ground, shattering the earth and sending rocks flying. Renji is overwhelmed and struck by the barrage of rocks launched by the dinosaur. A system message appears, stating special conditions have been met for a world quest. In a town square, a notification explains that special bosses will now appear. Renji suddenly awakens with a gasp, finding himself on the cobblestone ground of the town. A person standing over him asks if he died and has just respawned at this location. Renji gets up, feeling pain and seeing the death penalties. Noticing his glove is gone, he looks at his bare hand and considers re-equipping his initial gear to replace it. While standing in town, Renji receives an incoming call on his system interface. The caller ID shows a smiling young man whom Renji identifies as Now. Renji answers the call, confirming his name to the person on the other end. Now asks if Renji heard the server-wide announcement and if he has any information. Surprised, Renji realizes he must have missed the announcement because he was dead. Now asks about his low level, and Renji explains he was defeated by the Abyssal Forest Bow. An adventurer mentions a Tyrannosaurus-like creature that had a black aura. Renji looks confused, questioning the mention of a black aura. Renji looks confused, questioning the mention of a black aura. The adventurer advises Renji to talk to a person named Rudo about the bow. Renji asks if he is meant to sell information or negotiate with this person. The adventurer replies that Rudo might know what Renji wants to find out. He tells Renji that Rudo should be located in the clan house in the second town. The adventurer clarifies that he is outside and not currently in the clan house. Renji agrees to go and says he will pass along a message to Rudo. As Renji walks, he thinks about talking to Rudo and selling his material. He looks up with a surprised expression, having arrived at his destination. Renji stands before a massive building and exclaims at its impressive size. He looks up at the sign, identifying the building as the clan house. Feeling overwhelmed by the building's scale, Renji slumps over in intimidation. He steals his resolve, deciding he will just go in to talk and then leave. Renji reaches out and takes hold of the large door handle to enter. A man in armor leans over Renji, cheerfully asking if he has decided to join his clan. Renji sits on the floor looking flustered as the armored man looks down at him. The man explains he was happy to get a message from Now while pouring a cup of tea. He offers Renji a cup of chamomile tea, which gives a temporary MP boost. As Renji sips his tea, the armored man asks him about the purpose of his visit. The man clarifies that Now only told him that Renji was coming, not why. He suggests that Renji might get useful information if he joins the clan. Annoying Renji. Renji declines joining and says he wants to discuss something Naruto told him. He begins to speak about a boss that was enveloped in a black aura. The armored man's expression turns serious as he wonders if it is related to invisible black haze. Renji looks on with a confused expression, unfamiliar with the name. The armored man stands up abruptly, stating this is not the place for such a conversation. He turns and tells Renji to follow him to a more suitable location. While walking, he explains that invisible black haze is a major topic and they should share information. He stops at a set of doors and invites Renji into the clan master's room.